Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Bryan from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Security Squawk Podcast. I'm your host, Bryan Hornung, and as always, I've got Randy Bryan here with me to break down the latest in the cybersecurity world, how it can impact you, your business, your life in general. So this week, we're going to be diving into some fresh cases that, no surprise here, show us how attackers keep finding new ways to make the same old game feel brand new. We've got stories that stretch from the auto industry all the way down to IT tools being used against their own admins. And Randy's bringing us in some heavy-hitting supply chain news with attacks on major manufacturers around the globe and some interesting details on, one event that we already covered, which is the Jaguar Land Rover thing. And that's just wild what's happening there. So buckle up, let's go, let's get into it as I bring you the first topic, which is this automotive supply chain, another one, Volvo supplier actually called Binding Site, Randy, in this one. They got hit with ransomware, and of course, Volvo is the one taking the PR hit, as we've seen before with these suppliers that work with big name companies. I think, as we always talk about on the show, the Apple one that happened with the shell vendor who created the shells for the MacBooks, and the hackers tried to say we got Apple, and Apple didn't play that game, right? They let the cyber criminals deal with that company directly, and Apple kind of washed their hands of the situation. We have a similar event going on here, where a third-party supplier got hit with a ransomware attack that also has exposed sensitive employee data. And this is a key cog in Volvo's supply chain. This is not like some tiny fly-by-night vendor that makes like windshield wipers and they can just maybe flip over to somebody else or something like that. This is a pretty big supplier in who Volvo is and what they need to make cars. And when you attack a supplier, you're just not stealing employee data. You're creating this downstream chaos that hits the whole entire ecosystem. And Randy's going to clue us in on kind of what that looks like here in a few minutes when he clues us in on the update on the Jaguar Land Rover situation. So I don't want to kind of steal his thunder on that. But, man, here we are again. Major vendor hit in the auto industry, Randy. And I don't know what to make of it. This is getting pretty wild. I mean, if these guys can get hit, anyone can get hit.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there. This issue with Volvo not only affects Volvo, but up to 25 other organizations who also rely on that third-party vendor. So there's a lot to unpack there as well.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, we don't know a whole lot yet. It just goes into kind of like this article goes into kind of like high level. This is what we've seen from other supply chain events that have occurred and how it's impacted suppliers and what happens to the automotive industries when these companies can't deliver their cars. That's really kind of high level what this article discusses. So, that's really it, and I'm just kind of illustrating like this is what's going on at Volvo, and we'll dive deeper when we talk about what's going on at Jaguar Land Rover on how these things play out for these companies. But at the end of the day, that's it. And Volvo isn't alone, right? A new report that I have up here shows that, and this is really scary, Randy. It shows that 80% of ransomware victims are getting hit again, and they're paying up, which is crazy, right? Mm-hmm. So So what we're seeing here is a phenomenon where companies are paying up, not patching, not rebuilding from scratch, which allows the vulnerability that the group used to get in originally to still exist. And for some reason, this is getting lost on companies, Randy, and we can dive into why that might be happening. Is it just bad advice from people who are helping these companies
Yes.
get back up on their feet or something like
Yes.
that? I agree.
Yes.
But there's a good chance, based on what we're seeing in the data, folks, it's not me just making stuff up. This is in insurance data that is being pulled from insurance providers who are paying for these events in a lot of cases. And they're saying there's a good chance if you get hit that you're going back to deal with these attackers again in the future. Paying the ransomware paints a big fat target on your back. Cyber criminals share the victim list with each other. They know who caves, they know who pays, they know who's vulnerable, and they come back for seconds and even sometimes thirds, according to these insurance people. That is scary as hell.
You know what that reminds me of? So back in the day, we still have some of it. Back in the day, there were a ton of door-to-door salespeople, and people would put where they had people in the house fall for the sales tactics. They would put up a sign that says no soliciting. And door-to-door salespeople knew that those were their fattest targets, because the whole reason they put up the no soliciting sign was because that somebody in the house had bought too much and had fallen for the this or that from the salespeople. It's funny that you say that. There's a couple of things there. One, yes, they're going to know who pays. But then two, most of these companies don't really do anything to fix the original issue. Sorry about that. Most of these companies don't do anything to fix the original issue. And I've seen the ransomware, we've talked about that ransomware chat website. I've seen those chats. They get down to the point where the ransomware criminal basically says, here's your vulnerabilities. You can now go fix them. That's not your risk assessment, y'all. If they tell you that whatever it is, I wouldn't trust it. And you still got to go back and fix the holes.
You should trust it. You should trust it 100%, because I've read them too. And they kind of say it more like this. They say, here's how we got in. Now you're going to pay us to fix all these problems. Well, you're going to pay us because we're telling you how we got in. Number one, that's what they're saying. Number two, you're going to pay us to get out of this mess. And number three, if you want to continue to pay us, we'll help you get these things fixed. And that's where it falls off. They don't want to engage with the criminals, rightfully so, after the event. So they're not going to bring them in as the expert cybersecurity team.
Right.
But that's what they're offering. They're saying, hey, we'll help you fix this. So, but instead of them doing anything, they do nothing, right? It's like what we talk about all the time with people being lazy, right? Well, we got it out of the mess. Now let's move on. 2 weeks, and they forget about it. It only takes 2 weeks for humans to forget that they just got hit with ransomware 2 weeks ago.
Exactly.
Right? They moved on. And then the hackers are like, yeah, these bros over here didn't fix the hole. Let's get them again. Or let's tell Akira or Killen or whoever, what level ransomware group that, is up and coming. Let's give them a heads up. We want 10%. Here's how you get in. Here's how you hit them. Yeah,
I'm probably still not going to necessarily agree with relying on them to be your
cybersecurity experts.
Yeah, but
no, but it's a tactic.
I see your point.
It's a tactic.
I see your point. So
yeah, it's a tactic, and then businesses' response to that is, we're not going to do anything. When they should turn around and just take that list to a cybersecurity company and say, hey, we got hacked. Can you help us get to a point where this doesn't happen again?
Yep.
In fact, this just happened in Exact IT, dude. We just got a company out of a mess, and we gave them, here's what it's going to take for you to move to us. And when you move to us, you're never going to have to deal with this problem again. We're going to take care of you. Right? Too expensive.
Yep.
I can't there's nothing I can do there. Like, if you're gonna tell me I'm too expensive, then you want to get hacked. Like at the end of the day, right? You want me to cover your ass for $200 a month, and that's just not realistic.
And that's kind of well, I want to bring that back around later when we talk about cyber resilience and these things that are ongoing in my segment. But short story long, if the business doesn't really see the long-term ramifications, so they came to you in a mess, you got them cleaned up, but what if they were down for a month before somebody could clean up their mess, and they lost revenue, they lost employees over the lack of, loss of morale?
So I'll even give it to you more, dude. I'll give you more, right? It's not even about ransomware, right? There's a cyber criminal group that is literally targeting this company over and over again with fake doppelganger websites, fake doppelganger secure file shares, like setting them up in their name. And then because they were in their 365, they have all their contacts that they've been communicating with for the last 6 months, and they're hitting those people. So like the web of how that plays out is, if one of those companies gets hit and decides to use their cyber insurance to get out of a mess, the investigators, forensic people, are going to come in and say, how did this all originate? Oh, we got an email from so-and-so company. Let's go sue them now. That's how the insurance works, right? So your company can get sued if another company gets hacked because of an email that you sent them.
Mm-hmm.
And like, your company sends that to Volvo, and you shut Volvo down, as Randy's going to teach everybody here in a few minutes what the price tag for Land Rover's downtime is.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go out of business real fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let me end my segment and my rant here, Randy, with my final point with how bad this is. And the thread between everything is, it doesn't matter if you're Volvo supplier, a mid-sized company that's already paid once, as I mentioned, or a business with fancy remote management tools. Ransomware groups are adapting, right? And they're using things like, turning your own IT tools against you, right? Akira ransomware is out there attacking. Attackers breaking into custom companies' remote management platforms, all the same tools IT admins use to help employees or push out updates. So it doesn't really matter if you work in, or you work with an MSP, or you have your own IT department. You probably have these tools in place so your IT can help your employees and help them move about their day efficiently with technology.
Mm-hmm.
And once they get control of these tools, they flip these tools on your business. They use it to spread ransomware faster and lock down systems more efficiently. So the name of the game now is, we want to get in and we want to get control of these tools that we know are there as quick as possible. It's not about finding vulnerabilities anymore, which used to be how they used to do it all the time. It's not about trying to install their own tools anymore. It's about using AI to circumvent your EDR protection, your antivirus, and use the tools that are already in your network to get this stuff. And they figured it out, and they've been very successful with it. They flipped the script here in the last 6 months, and I'm giving you a heads up. I've talked about it before on the show, Randy. It's like giving a burglar your house keys and security cameras and acting shocked when they clean out your house.
Right.
That is what I'm trying to warn everybody here, is what we're seeing in real time across the globe of how businesses are getting hit. So pay attention. They're these groups, these ransomware groups, they're adapting, they're evolving, they're finding new ways to monetize the same old hustle, and they're adapting so quickly that your security and awareness training is basically useless, because it changes so much so quickly that what you're learning today isn't what they're doing tomorrow. Right? This isn't about one-off attacks anymore. It's about persistence. It's about being patient. These guys are networked, and they're treating your businesses like you're a joke. If you're not thinking about how to defend your organization from these repeat attempts, from these supply chain exposures that we talk about all the time, and from your own tools being hijacked, you're already behind the curve, right? You're worried about, the old stuff, the vulnerabilities, patching, not thinking about like the tools that we have in place to support our organization are going to be hijacked one day, and we're going to be taken advantage of as a result. So that's my rant, Randy. That's where things are at today. Living off the land has just been put on steroids. I know we've been talking about that for a long time, but that's where the world is. And you're going to clue us in a little bit more here.
I want to make a comment here on this one before you move on.
Yeah.
I mean, so none of this is too shocking, because I think a lot of this we've talked about from a what if standpoint, especially the whole living off the land thing. Okay, so maybe they weren't doing this exact thing a year ago, but we were talking about this kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? Right. And I think the key, I read through this article, and there's one paragraph that just talks about how bringing in a security operations center with a SIEM, which is ingesting all the data, and it talks about ingesting the data across everything. And is that your only hurdle for the bad guys? No. Like your EDR, which that's like an advanced antivirus with its own like built-in monitoring, and your managed EDR where a person's looking at it, like that can be shut down with a command. They can turn that off. I read about a command in the last week or two where it's naturally shut off as part of the Windows process, and then they just grab it and suspend it right there in that split second and shut it down. But that shouldn't be your only hurdle.
That's EDR killer you're talking about.
Yes, and you should where they have there's a Windows, like basically a handoff in a service. I think it was a task. I can't remember exactly. I'd have to go look. But basically it gets shut down for like a quarter of a second, and they just freeze it right in that little handoff time, and then they do their stuff. But that shouldn't be your only hurdle, was what I was going to say about that previous article. And then also you ought to be ingesting the data from everywhere. So a little thing here and a little thing there can be brought together and looked at together, and then be considered suspicious. One thing that does concern me though, Bryan, we talked about it about 2 months ago, was how they're doing like one little thing now and then waiting like 31 days and doing another little thing and then waiting like 30. That is very scary. You know what I mean? Because
they're trying to evade what they know we're looking for, right?
Yep. So anyway,
same thing applies to how they're using AI to get things into your network.
Yep.
Right? Because your SOC teams are looking for what they know a group is using, indicator of compromise, and they're looking for that. When they start using things like AI to do it a new way, build code on the fly using AI on your computer so they can get that code in without passing it through an EDR, that's what they're doing today. And, and your tools are not built to detect this stuff. So again, we're in a place where we're flying blind because of this is how technology is, and you have to accept it. Is when you use technology, as Randy said, with his interrupt little thing, right? And I will tell you that the DNS, the thing that routes traffic, is chock full of issues that if somebody wanted to exploit, they could, and there's nothing anybody can do about it because it's just how the technology is built. Yep. Same thing with the interrupt thing that Randy said. There's nothing anyone can do to stop that because that has to happen as part of the computing process. And if somebody can figure out how to interrupt that, there's nothing anybody can do to stop it because that's how the computers are designed to run. And somebody's just exploiting this flaw in that design.
Yep.
All right. So that's what it is. So, all right, Randy, you're up next. You want to go with this Asahi one first, or Asahi? All right.
Yeah. So
I don't even know how to say this.
I assume it's Asahi. They are a big brewer of beers and such over in Japan, and I know that we like to focus mostly on the USA because this podcast is for business people in the USA, but at the same time, we do talk about things that are relevant that happen around the world because, we're not an island and things are interconnected in our world. And the thing that really struck me about this, Bryan, is really the need to talk about segmentation, because this attack happened and Asahi does own other brands around the world that were not affected by this. So there is some kind of segmentation there, but within about 24 hours, whatever happened, we don't know the exact details yet, whatever happened led to a shutdown on the production floor, okay, at 30-ish breweries around the country in Japan. So something happened in their IT, that caused this breach, that brought their OT, their operational technology, that brought it to its knees. And this just, when I read this, it made me think about Jaguar, or AKA Jaguar. It made me think about that, because the Jaguar thing brought them to their knees from a production standpoint. And that's what's happening here. And we are going to talk just a tiny bit, a little update in a minute about the Jaguar thing. But this has affected probably 30 breweries that are shut down by this. There's press, releases that are saying like no customer data, like, y'all, okay, good, thanks for letting us know, but that's like the least of your worries. Your lines aren't running, and that's how you generate your money. And that's why I thought this was so relevant, Bryan, because the way for them to make money has been squeezed down to basically nothing. Yeah, maybe they already have some.
No doubt, because it's not just about the lines running, dude.
Yes.
According to the article, they can't process orders, they can't ship, and their call center has been shut down as well.
Yep.
So they can't even answer customer. So when people are restaurants, suppliers, or distributors are expecting beer deliveries to show up and they don't even have anybody they can talk to find out, like, when are they going to get the beer?
Right.
So do they, and that hurts those businesses, because, the time that they don't know is time that they can't pivot to another product or another, supplier to keep their restaurants and their customers, from being impacted. So, that's how it plays out down the line. Good point on the no personal data mentioned. I guess they feel like a little good about it because it hasn't been on the dark web leak site as of yet. But again, it's still early and that hasn't played out yet. And as we always say, that is something you kind of want to probably hold on to for maybe 2 to 4 weeks before you start saying any of those words, right? Because you just don't know. As you mentioned, it's 30 breweries, Randy, that they have, plants, right? So this sounds like the Anheuser-Busch of Japan, folks. Like, this isn't any joke, right? This is not like some little microbrewery, right? I guess if you're a Japanese beer fan, you probably heard of this. I haven't, but that's the deal. Nothing else I can pick up on. I mean, just, obviously underscores that trend we talked about with disrupting operations, ransomware, obviously valuing the downtime here and the disruption to the business as leverage, which will help in the extortion. Most groups use data exfiltration as part of it, and I can't imagine that this is going to be much different. So.
Yeah, I mean, they want to bring you to your knees. They want to do anything they can psychologically to force you to pay. Right. Like we just read on the previous segment, 80% of companies that get ransomware pay the ransom. Yep. So this is still a lucrative job market, if you will, for the criminals, right?
Yeah, what did we do? About a month ago, we did that kind of deep dive on that chat, right? And we saw kind of the back and forth of the negotiation, right? Yes. And And if you go back and watch that episode, you'll see kind of how the negotiation flows for, I would say, maybe a neophyte negotiator on the other side, at least for a little while. But he, from a monetary standpoint, he didn't do a terrible job getting that payment down. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I mean, you can get context from that as to how calculated these guys are and letting you know how much information they have about you, right? As we saw with that attacker in the chat, discussing financial statements and insurance policies that they were able to steal and then evaluate once they had, right? Which then they used as part of the negotiation to say, like, hey, we know you have insurance, or we know you have more money than you say you have, right? And try to use that as a way to kind of call the company's bluff when they're sitting there crying poor, saying we don't have that kind of money to pay you, right? So very interesting stuff. So unfortunately, good.
Well, one last point I wanted to just kind of touch on is how important it is to be resilient. And, we call it cyber resilience. There's a lot of different words you can use, but are you ready? Is your business ready for something like this? Is your business ready to be shut down a few days, 30 days, 2 weeks, whatever it is? And we've been saying this for years. This is nothing new, but at the end of the day, we know statistically speaking that most businesses are living paycheck to paycheck. So my question is, do you have the cash reserves to be able to make it through something like this? Do you have the cyber insurance to be able to make it through something like this? Do you have cybersecurity controls in place to limit the blast radius so the whole business isn't brought down when, somebody clicks in the front office, clicks on a bad email or false, gives away credentials to a hacker on the phone pretending to be IT or whatever? Like all of these things, it felt like we're beating this drum, Bryan. We have now for what, 4 years, 200 plus episodes. Right, it just underscores how important that is.
We need to, because you got to understand where the state of most businesses are today, and the reason what I mean by that is, like, the one customer or the one client we just helped through an event, right? Literally just saying, like, should I buy cyber insurance in the middle of their event? Like, it just shows you how out of touch business leaders are with these situations. Like, yeah, I mean, like, if you really understood, you would never ask that question, because you're dealing with a cyber event because you weren't prepared. Right. And to get cyber insurance, you have to show or demonstrate some level of preparedness around this stuff. Right. So either you're lying, which puts you in a position of insurance fraud, and it also puts you in a position where if something does happen and they decide you were lying, because they get to decide, not anybody else, then they don't pay your claim. So you're just wasting money on an insurance premium that'll never pay out. Right. So these are things that, like, when you get those kinds of questions, you're like, wow, we're really far off base here. So, all right, dude, let's go into Jaguar here. This is pretty wild what this turned into. I honestly did not think it was going to turn into something like this. But here we are. We're heading into October. I think they've been down we're going on 5 weeks now.
August 30th.
How has this impacted this company, Randy? Let's
for
everybody.
Yeah. So I just wanted to follow up on this one, Bryan, because it has been ongoing 4 or 5 weeks now. Production shut down. And then what I'm thinking about is, like, I don't have any customers that are the size of Jaguar, if you will, but I have tons of customers that make money off of bigger companies. They're parts of supply chains and things like that. And I'm just thinking of these companies, these auxiliary third-party supply chain companies that are now suffering as well. So the cost of these guys being down, and you remember we talked about it that first week where they'd said, okay, on Wednesday, in 4 days, that's our goal to be back up. And they've kept pushing it back and pushing it back. Now it's October 1, which is tomorrow, that they plan on bringing it back up. That I would still not bet any money on that yet. This sounds like a pretty bad deal, obviously. But it just goes to show, once again, Bryan, the need for resilience. This has got to be part of your business plan. Not only being able to try to prevent attack and not getting yourself in a place like this happens with your business, but also if something does happen, limiting the blast radius, having cash reserves, having cyber insurance, having a SOC who can literally tell you how you got to this point. We had probably 6 months ago, someone in an office clicked on a fake thing, gave away her credentials, and then the dang firewall died like 20 minutes later. So we shut everything down. And then what did we do? We got on a call with our SOC. We started analyzing all the data. We saw exactly what happened. Turns out the firewall just dang died at a wrong, horrible time, right? And we started bringing up each part little by little. And what could have been a business-ending thing ended up being a blip. Yes, it took 12 hours. That really, really sucked from that perspective. But you know what? We brought them back up and we moved on from it. My point is, do you have any kind of strategy like that? I'm kind of rambling now, Bryan. I'll just close on this. It's got to be a part of our business planning is cyber resilience, both preventing, enduring, and coming back after you have one, or you end up in a business ending event. By the way, they got a loan from the UK government, $1.5 billion to stay afloat and not go out of business.
Yeah. And that's because, you're talking about an organization who has factories in UK, Slovakia, India, and Brazil that were all impacted. They're losing about 50 million per week. Their insurance has probably been far exceeded in terms of its limits. And unfortunately, this is going to be a massive learning lesson for this organization. While you may not look at Jaguar and Land Rover cars as critical or necessary in terms of the big picture, but the jobs that all these people have that are now in jeopardy as a result of this are a big deal for those countries that have those workers in those countries, right? Because they're not able to work, so they're not able to produce income, pay taxes, right, and keep the system going, so to speak. So that's why the government stepped in, right? And unfortunately, I don't think your business, my business, most businesses out there, Randy, are going to enjoy being too big to fail, right? And government stepping in and bailing them out. So you got a plan. That $2 billion emergency line of credit from the UK government, very interesting. A number. It's 1.5 billion from the UK government and 2 billion from an emergency line of credit from commercial banks. That's $3.5 billion to get out of this mess. And that tells me they're going to be down longer than October.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's a pretty significant amount of money.
Yep.
So,
yep.
We'll see where it goes. We'll keep you posted. I mean, this organization is probably going to have to rebuild a significant part of their infrastructure to get things back up and running here so people can start working again. Very, very interesting situation, Randy.
Yep.
Crazy.
It is crazy.
Doesn't seem like things are slowing down at all. Luke threw in a comment here. I just want to kind of talk about this a little bit. Schools are at the start of the year. Retail was in the middle. Now car production towards the end of the year. Interesting how it changes. I would say that that's probably more attributed to the threat vector that they're exploiting than anything, right? There's some common threat out there that these entities usually have, and that's kind of how it usually plays out. Like schools are using the same system that they know that they can break into, so they just once they find one, then they just use a tool like Shodan and they go find the rest of them that are out there. And that's how they find similar applications running similar versions that they know have similar vulnerabilities, right? So it's just a matter of knowing that, hey, this school car, Volvo, whoever, they use a certain system and we can exploit it. And that's more than likely what's at play here than any kind of like seasonal thing or them deciding, hey, we're going to bounce from this industry to that industry based on the calendar month. That's really usually not how it plays out. So, all right, man, let's bring this one home. Today we talked about ransomware coming at businesses from all sides through suppliers like Volvo, through these repeat attacks on companies that already paid once, and even through IT tools being turned against their own admins. And Randy, talked to us about how these major manufacturers like, I'm not going to try to say the name. Asahi, is that how you say it?
Yeah, it might be that. I say Asahi, but
Asahi? Okay.
Do some phonics.
We'll go with that, Asahi. And Jaguar Land Rover underlying the fragility of global supply chain. So bottom line here, these cyber criminals are relentless. And if you think this is slowing down, it's not. They're going to use your data. They're going to hit your vendors. They're going to cause some disruption in your life and in your business. And they might even use your own IT tools against you. So make sure you have controls around them. Know who is accessing them, and make sure if they're admin level, if you can do admin level stuff, you're using strong passwords and MFA on those things before they can get into them. It's very important. So if you got value out of today's show, make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you're watching us on YouTube, connect with us on Facebook or LinkedIn. Drop us a review if you listen to us on a podcasting platform. And just share out the Security Squawk to your network wherever you see us. It really helps push us up in the algorithm so more people see this when they're searching for information. IT pros need to hear this message as well, so get it out to them. And if you want to support the show directly, you can buy Randy and I a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Security Squawk. We will catch you in the next episode next week. Stay safe. And don't feed these ransomware trolls. Do the right thing. See you in the next episode.